Hey guys, it's Ensei, and welcome back to another Draw With Me while I talk, and talk, and talk, and talk. I thought my second Draw With Me would have been out sooner, but it took me longer to get to than I thought. Mostly because I got distracted with playing ParanormaSight, and I just haven't finished writing my story, the second part of my story that I read in the first Draw With Me, but I have now, so that's why this video is done. So like in the first Draw With Me, I'll be talking about all kinds of topics, but to be more specific, in the first half, I'll be talking about writing and stories and just my experience on writing and my thought process. And then in the second half, I'll talk more about how important I think it is to be a good listener. And also, I have a few stories from some strangers that I've talked to, and I'll tell you my own spooky, scary story that has to do with my trip to Japan that I had last year. I hope you watch till the end and don't skip, please. I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you to watch through, or I'm trusting you to listen through this whole video. Like in the first Draw With Me, sometime during this video, I will read my new part of the story that I've been working on since the first Draw With Me. So I finished part 2, and I edited some details in part 1, so I will read both part 1 and part 2, because the details are small, but they are important. That's all I will say. Some of them, most of them. But yeah, I hope you don't skip part 1 if you've already heard part 1, and I hope you enjoy part 1 and part 2. So that'll be somewhere in this video. And let's just get started. When I was drawing, I wasn't super happy with some of these drawings, but I feel like it's more realistic because not everyone is, well, I hope not, but not everyone is consistent with their art, and they don't always make something they like. So I just wanted to show it anyways, even if I'm not super happy with it, because it's realistic. And I hope it's still fun to watch. So the art is kind of irrelevant to this video. It's just so I can have something running in the background so you can watch. But I'm mostly gonna be talking and not even about what I'm drawing. I got some new equipment so I could film my Draw With Me videos easier, and so I have more consistent lighting and camera position, camera angle. And I researched and I watched other videos to see how they do it. And so those were very helpful. I'll admit it, if you look at it, it looks kind of scuffed, the setup, but it works. And you gotta work with what you have. Well, besides the stuff I ordered, I had to work with what I have. But the lighting will probably be different every time, because I'm still trying to figure it out, but for now it looks okay. So it works. One thing I noticed I'm getting better at with my writing is writing inner monologue, because I usually just write dialogue and then an action or a verb or something happening and then describing something and then dialogue again. So just repeating those, and then once in a while I'll have inner monologue, but I'm getting a lot better at it. I don't know how, maybe just because I tried harder. I feel like that is the only reason. I don't have any other reason. But I guess as you do things, you learn and you get better. Somehow. And also, I recently had a few days off. I had a few days to myself, just by myself. And at first, I was so excited because I love being by myself. And I like my own company, and I had so much time And I did do things that have to do with making videos, but with the writing, I could not think. During the days I had off, I had writer's block, so I couldn't write. But then the night right before going to bed and right before the next day I had to go back to my work, I was just on my phone and I just rewrote the whole entire of part 2 for my story, because I just wasn't feeling it. It just didn't feel right. So I just rewrote it, and it's completely different, but it worked. I don't know how it just clicked in my head. And I only had a few hours left before, I did go to bed late because I'm terrible, but I guess I just work better under pressure when I have less time. Oh, yeah, I'm terrible with that. So I slept late and then I felt bad the next day. But well, I woke up early because I was just thinking about my story and I kept writing right as I woke up. But so I don't know how the brain works, but I wrote the story sleep deprived when I couldn't write it when I had so much time and I wasn't sleep deprived. How does that work? I don't know. But it worked. And I'm happy with what I wrote. And during those days off where I got stuck on my story and I didn't know what to write next, I felt like I was in a slump, and I just felt like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my writing, with my art? But it happens once in a while, and most of the time, well, every time, it hasn't stopped me yet, but every time you will get out of your slump. And sometimes you just need to give it time. There's no other way to get rid of it or get past it. Yeah, that's the only advice I can give for being in a slump with your creative projects or your hobbies. But I got inspired, and well, after I put out part 3 of ParanormaSight, I felt relieved because I wanted to be done with it and I wanted to start working on my story and drawing the characters for the story. So again, I'm glad I got past the slump because I wrote the story and I'm happy, but the character designs aren't really finalized, but it's not really important since the story can be a standalone. It doesn't need art. But I just want to make art for it. I find that when writing stories, it's kind of like a puzzle. And I love puzzles, any kind of puzzles. I mean, I can't always solve them, but eventually I usually can. Maybe. Yeah, when writing stories, it's kind of like a puzzle because I can't think of how I want to progress the story sometimes, but when I think about it later, or some other day, new ideas just form in my head and it just clicks into place and it's so satisfying. And it's like ideas that I don't even know how my brain came up with it. I don't know, it's so cool how the brain works. It's crazy. But it's so satisfying when it just clicks into place, like this little detail I wrote the other day, and then a different day I think of another detail and how the detail I thought of that other day, how that clicks into place, and it's like, oh wow, like why couldn't I think of that earlier? But yeah, it's so fun and it's so satisfying. In the first part of the story, I didn't have names for the characters yet, so I've been thinking since then, and I have I love cool names, and I love cool, rare, unique names. I've always loved them. So when I was younger, I used to ride on my bike through the cemetery, and I would look at the gravestones, and I would get cool names from those. There weren't many, but once in a while I'd find one. But yeah, that's a good way to get names. And I keep a list of the names on my phone, and if they have a cool meaning, I write that down too. And apparently it's called being a name nerd. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought I was the only one, but I guess not, and there's a name for it. So I'm glad there's other people who also appreciate very cool names, and I can get cool names from those people. But I'm not a big fan of coming up with names or usernames because it's a big commitment and you have to stick with it. But I mean, I can always change it in my story, I guess, but I'd rather just stick with it so it doesn't get confusing for readers. I like the names that I gave my two leading characters in this story though, so I don't remember how I came up with the main character's name, but the snow spirit the snow spirit's name is a long story, and it spoils a book that I'm not gonna get into, but I think these two names fit the characters. When it comes to music, I usually like a song when I like the lyrics, and I actually like romantic lyrics that are kind of cheesy sometimes, but some artists make them work, and it just sounds so poetic and pretty. I mean, it's still kind of cheesy, but it sounds nice sometimes. It's rare to find writers like that. And I'm usually pretty blunt when it comes to talking, but when I write, I guess I have to put more thought into it, so I feel like when I write, it sounds a lot more poetic. It sounds a lot more poetic than how I normally talk. But writing has definitely helped me be a little less blunt with my words, because it is an art, so you have to put thought into it and creativity. Recently, when I was going through a slump, which happens once in a while, it happens once in a while, but I usually get over it pretty fast. But sometimes I would feel behind other people, like at the age that I am, I feel like I'm supposed to have done more or achieved more. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. But I also heard somewhere like, who are you behind of? Those people that you might feel like you're behind of, or you haven't achieved as much as them, they probably have people that make them feel like they are behind in life as well. So you don't know what's going on. People have such different lives. Don't assume that that person has it all figured out, because they probably don't. And that's okay, because I think people should always keep growing in life, growing themselves. I know I say this often, but I guess it's because it's something that I've been working on and I'm still working on, but I'm at a much happier place in my life. I'm content with myself and my life for the most part, and it took a lot to be here. And you can always compare, like, oh, you didn't go through that much as compared to this person or that person, but again, everyone goes through different things. So what's a lot for me might not be a lot for you, or vice versa. But if you get to a certain point in your life with yourself, then I don't think what you've been through should be compared to other people, if that makes sense. Sometimes it's hard to talk, but I'm getting better. And one thing I've been learning recently and trying to come to terms with is fate. I guess the word fate and what it means. I'm trying to adopt the mindset that nothing is coincidence and that everything happens to us for a reason. And everything that happens to us, the people we meet or the people we don't meet, are all for a purpose, good or bad. And that if something is meant to happen, then it was meant to happen. And if something doesn't happen, it just wasn't meant to happen. And I believe that, I'm trying to think that that is the truth. That is just how the world works. And it's been teaching me to detach. It might sound like a bad thing and like a fatalistic mindset, but for me at least, the mindset that if it's meant to happen, it will happen, and vice versa, it helps you be more content with whatever the outcome of the situation you're facing. It helps you stay in the middle and not be controlled by the extreme ups and downs of life, whatever happens. And of course, you can be happy or sad from time to time. That's completely normal. Don't suppress yourself to an unhealthy point. But when you practice and learn to not let these events control you and control your life and control how you feel, you are in control of your emotions and yourself. And it helps you keep a clear mind and not be blinded by the extreme ups and downs that happen, that you face. Keeping a clear mind is a good exercise to do or to practice. It's a tough skill to learn and to develop, but I know that I'm a lot better at it than I used to be. And I think that just comes with age. I know I shouldn't say it, but I feel old sometimes. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone older than me, but I feel it. And being in the mindset that everything happens for a reason, and if something happens, it was meant to happen, and if something doesn't happen, it wasn't meant to happen, it doesn't mean you still shouldn't try your best at something. But I encourage you to try and learn to be content with the outcome, no matter what it is. So still try your best, but whatever happens will happen. But if you are content with it, then you'll be okay. I just want to say something I realized recently when I had a few days to myself. I usually like being alone. I don't feel lonely most of the time. I guess those few days I had alone, when I saw the people I usually see again, I felt better. And I was talking to someone, and life, people come and go, and that's what I said. But they also said, and some stick around. And that's true, and that cheered me up. That made me happy. So thank you. And not all the people that stick around are great, but some are. And that's just life. Cherish the connections you have with people in real life. And if you think you don't have people in your life that you can cherish around you, that's not true, because you can cherish yourself. Another thing I want to encourage is talking to strangers. I've learned that when you talk to strangers, you get a different perspective on life and on people, just on strangers. Because after talking to them, you realize people have such different lives. People lead all kinds of life. People lead such diverse lives, and especially older people. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I notice a lot of old people like me, and I like old people. Well, nice old people. Older people. Sorry, excuse me. And the old person who likes to talk to me the most is my dad. Hi, Dad. I just like hearing them talk, and then when they talk to me. But when you just acknowledge something they have or something small that you don't think will have a big story. They surprise you and they tell you a whole story that you did not expect. So I'll tell two that I've heard. There was a lady and she had a really cute coin purse. It had like a cute bird on it and it was cute. So I told her, I like your coin purse, it's really cute. And she said thank you, and she said she got it from Switzerland. So I asked, have you been to Switzerland? And she said, yes, her daughter lives there permanently. And they bought a cottage together there, and they're gonna move. She's gonna retire, and she's gonna move there to live with her daughter soon, with her family. And that is so sweet. That is so cute. And that's just like, wow, that's just from me asking, or that's just from me saying that her coin purse is cute. And I just learned a whole side of her. I've never met anyone who's been to Switzerland, well, except one person. But I've never met a stranger who's been to Switzerland, and they're also moving to Switzerland, so that's really cool. Very happy for her. And our paths crossed, and we're just strangers. And then she's gonna move, and we probably won't ever see each other again, but our paths crossed once, and what are the chances? Again, if something's meant to happen, it will happen, and the people you meet who you're supposed to meet, you will meet, and vice versa. And another story is from an older gentleman that my friend and I talked to. And my friend said how his wife's accent was really like a thick British accent. And he said, yes, she's from the UK, and they live here together. They've lived here since the 1980s. So wow, being with someone for that long is so sweet. And then he told the story of how they met. And he said he got hit by a truck when he was in the UK. And he had to be in the hospital for a few months. And turns out his wife was his nurse. It's kind of funny, but it's also like really cute. I love stories of how people met. It's so cute. And they've been together ever since. So, and my friend, because my friend was talking to him mostly, not me, but she said that he said it was worth getting hit by that truck. And I'm really a sucker for romance. It's so sweet. Makes me so happy for them. So cute. But see, these two stories, all you have to do is ask about something, anything, comment on something, anything, like their coin purse or their wife's accent, and they have a whole story behind it. It's just amazing. Each person has their own life, and obviously, but all the stories you don't know unless you ask. I'm sure everyone, even you, have such crazy stories. So I encourage you to talk to a stranger sometimes, preferably an older person, older generation, because they're usually they want to talk most of the time, and if they seem nice, then I encourage you to strike up a conversation. But you might be there for a while, because I know some older people can chat a lot, are very chatty. But sometimes they're just lonely, or they just want to talk. And you're helping them with that, you're listening to them, and that's pretty nice. So if you have the time and you can build up the courage, I encourage you to strike up a conversation with a stranger. And you don't have to have any expectations or, like, I don't know, it doesn't even have to be an older person. So if you have any interesting stories that have happened to you or experiences, If you have a story of how you met your significant other or your best friend or anyone, I love these stories. If you're comfortable, feel free to leave them in the comments so I can read them. Listening to a stranger talk or an older person talk or tell you about something that has happened to them is actually a pretty good way to practice your listening skills. I find that most people just want to talk, and that's not a bad thing, but there's always a time and place. And people usually try to give their 2 cents about what someone else has been going through or what they think about whatever they're talking about. But I think people should practice to become a better listener and not just always try to give their opinion or try to relate to whatever that other person is talking about. It's okay if you can't relate, because we're all different. If you can't relate to something that happened to someone else, it's okay. The reason I like encouraging people to become better listeners is because you learn so much from listening, and you learn so much more about someone else, but you also learn more about yourself, actually. You don't have to give your opinion about what you think or what they're talking about right away. Just let them talk, and then you can reflect on yourself later. And I find that it really helps your relationship with other people. The people that you care about and the people that care about you. Really listening and active listening. And of course, this means not just inserting yourself into the conversation just to give your opinion. You listen and you give your opinion or ask a question that still relates to the person that you are listening to. You can ask at certain moments if they want your opinion or advice or not, and if they do, that's great, and if not, that's also great, because you listened to them and that's what they needed. And the fact that they came to tell you is already saying a lot, I think. And you're not listening just because you feel obligated to, but it should feel more like you're listening out of genuine care and interest for this person. And when you do it like that, it builds stronger bonds and a stronger understanding of each other. And when you get to that point with someone or multiple people, when you're actually having an actual conversation with someone and not just one person is listening and the other person is just talking, like a true conversation, and you both give your thoughts back and forth and you're both listening to each other, it's so nice and it's so fun. And it feels like you're really connecting and just enjoying each other's company. And people like this are really hard to find. And if you have people around you that aren't like this, and they're always doing all the talking and you have to always listen, don't think poorly of them, because people can grow and change, and I've experienced that. But also, of course, some people might not change, but they could. And it's not only manners, but it's also a sense of self-awareness that they can learn. And everyone has a certain level of ego within them, and it could be fragile, but it sometimes does take a nudge from someone they care about to tell them. And if they really care about you too, they will put in the effort to grow, not only for their benefit, but the people around them that they care about. And it's not an instant change, but you might notice gradually that they are listening to you more, or you're both contributing to the conversation equally. And the person who always does all the talking could be you. So just be mindful. And it's not always a bad thing, but I would say cherish the people who really listen to you when you talk, and do the same for them when they need it. it's not a transactional part of a relationship, but it's just nice. I would say use your own judgment. So when you both get to the point where you're just talking back and forth and giving your opinions, it's so fun, and you'll really strengthen your bond with these people and learn and grow from each other. So again, I encourage you to listen more and talk less. And of course, the other side of this is when you become a good listener, people might start dumping on you, like problem dumping on you, or take advantage of you being such a good listener. And if this happens, the only advice I have for this is to still just actively and genuinely listen to them, but don't take what they say to heart too much or lose sleep over their problems, because that will take a toll on you. Some things should just go in one ear and out the other. And it's not that you don't care about the other person's problems, but it shouldn't be burdening you also. Be careful who you give your energy to, because it can drain you. And this also doesn't mean to think of that person in a bad or negative way, and instead try to be grateful. Because some people just want to rant sometimes, or they just want someone to listen. And people are so different, and the way someone thinks about something could be completely different from what you think. So try not to assume the worst in people sometimes. And I'm talking about specific circumstances, not like if someone is, I don't know, stealing, then assume that they're doing it for a good reason. But I don't know, they might. I don't know. I think that's a bad metaphor. That's a bad example, but yeah, don't steal. But I hope you still get what I'm trying to say. Maybe. The past 3 videos have been my playthrough of ParanormaSight, and it's been really fun, and I love the stories. It's scary sometimes, but it's worth going through to figure out the story. And instead of editing a new part one week and then posting it the next week and repeating that, I will probably do one like once a month maybe, and I'll edit it gradually, because that'll be easier for me. And I love reading out loud and voicing the characters. It's so fun. But a lot of the characters, there's a lot of male characters, and sometimes I forget how deep of a voice I gave one character, and then I forget how I sound normally. It was such a strange experience. Like, I forgot how I normally talk. It was so weird. And there's a character in the later chapters, and I gave him a really deep voice because it would fit him, but it's so straining on my throat. But it's still fun to do. But yeah, I don't mind going through the scary just to figure out the mystery. Yeah, don't worry, I will keep playing because I want to get through the whole story. Eventually. Since we're talking about stories and listening to other people and scary topics or spooky horror themes, I have my own scary story that happened to me. And again, it's about my trip to Japan, and I feel like it's just going to be an ongoing theme at this point in my videos. The trip to Japan, where I went with my friend last year. Before we went, I had a dream, and I remember it like in my dream I was looking at Google Maps, and then it was the numbers or the words or something, but it was Hachigoshi, which I took it as like a date or a time, because Hachi is 8, and then Go is 5, and then Ji, it can mean like hour. But Yeah, that stuck with me. So when I woke up, I was like, I have to look that up. Like, what is this? So I looked it up. I spelled it Hachigo and then Ji. Hachigoji. I looked it up, and of course, there's nothing that relates to it, but the closest recommended search was called Hachioji, and it was Hachioji Castle. And it turns out Hachioji Castle is one of the most haunted castles in Japan. Just let that sink in. Woo! So spooky! So of course I told my friend and we wanted to go, but we didn't go because we couldn't find the time. It was about, we did stay in Tokyo, but it was about a 2-hour train ride from Tokyo out to Hachioji Castle. Well, it was a 2-hour train ride and then you had to walk a bit. Oh, I looked it up and it's considered to be the most haunted place in the Kanto region. And right now it's like a park, well, not a park, it's like a rail trail, a trail you can walk around the area. If you look up the story, I read it. It was during the Sengoku period, the Sengoku era in Japan, which is the most violent history or time in Japan. And if you read the story on Hachioji Castle, it is very violent. So look it up at your own risk, but yeah, so I had a dream about it, which is, well, yeah, so strange. But I will definitely go next time whenever I go again, because why? That is so creepy. So my friend and I just have a theory that I was there in a previous life, and I died there, or something. Who knows? And now I will read you my story that I've been writing. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I changed some information and some stuff in part 1 that I read in the first video. So if you've already heard that, I do suggest listening through the whole read, because there's some important details, some of them. And if you fall asleep while listening to my story, I won't be offended, because when I was listening to it again, I almost fell asleep in the second half. So feel free to fall asleep. That's fine. Good thing I put this part at the end in case you do fall asleep. I was already writing part 2, but I rewrote the whole thing. It was supposed to be a flashback, but I was almost done writing it, but I just wasn't feeling it anymore, and the characters felt kind of forced and unnatural, so I just rewrote it. I rewrote part 2. And also, world building is just a lot of work. That is all I will say. But yeah, I'm getting a better understanding of who my characters are and how they would act and what they would say. So they feel more natural to write now. And it actually helps with voicing them too, because I can act out how they would probably say it better, because I have a better understanding of how they are, who they are. So feel free to fall asleep. If you fall asleep, I won't be offended. And I hope you enjoy. Please, I just want to talk. A barrage of icicles flies towards me and I dodge, but not far enough. 2 hit my scythe, the force knocks my weapon out of my hand and slides it across the snow. "You don't think I've heard that line before?" he counters. Even though I was being honest, if I don't fight back now, I might not have a chance to prove that. I reach my hand out to summon my scythe, but before I can, a blow to my side propels me to the ground. The fluffy snow digs into the skin on my hands as I go to push myself up. But when I try to put some distance between me and the ground, I can't. In fact, I can't even move my legs or hands anymore. I look to find my limbs fastened to the snow and frost, which scrambles up them and not a breath later, the same courtesy extends to my torso. I'm left in an awkward, twisted sitting position, with my opponent livid and ready to send me to my next life. Since I first stepped foot on this mountain and entered the forest, I was greeted with a stench that I am all too familiar with. The stench of death. Now, what do we have here? The snow spirit makes his way towards me, each step deliberate, as if he won't let himself be caught off guard. His eyes trail down, and with my cloak disarray, his observation lands on the crescent-shaped pin on my shirt, and then to my scythe, which lies discarded on the ground encased in ice. I can tell that the realization of what I am sets in when he rolls his eyes. Ugh, a spirit reaper. The man lets out a breath that can be considered more of a scoff than a sigh. Not that the hood and scythe didn't make it obvious, he adds, almost to himself. I sure wish you'd be the last. Do you know how annoying it gets to fend off one reaper after another? I then have to find a new location to settle in, but you all somehow find me again anyways. As if to prove his annoyance, more ice creeps up my arms to my shoulders, and then stops just before it reaches the skin of my neck. The chill, like a slight tease, brushes against my skin, and though the thought of him seeing me squirm makes me cringe, I try to wriggle out of the ice that envelops my limbs and torso. My feeble attempt to escape comes to a halt when a low rumble sounds from his direction. I peer up at him from my position on the frozen ground and realize that he finds my predicament to be amusing. I feel my cheeks warm up from the humiliation as he steps closer. The snow and shards of ice crunches under his bare feet, but he makes no acknowledgement of any pain from either the cold or the sharpness of them. Aren't there usually two of you? Where's your partner hiding, Reaper? His eyes scan the dark depths of the trees surrounding the open field. Once he doesn't detect another soul around, he tilts his head and his eyes become pale gold slits. Oh, I see. So optimistic of your own abilities, aren't you? I've encountered spirit reapers far more adept than you in a fight, though you were still quite fun to spar with, and quite adorable when you're in no position to kill me. The snarl when he speaks those words indicates to me that adorable should not be taken as a compliment in this case. I close my eyes to rein in whatever patience I have left and calculate my options. Like I said earlier, I came here to have a conversation. If I wanted to fight, do you really think I would have come here by myself? I couldn't even land a scratch on you. He lets out yet another laugh. That makes you either dumb or naive, and I don't know you, so I'm going to assume that it's both. I choose to ignore his snide remark and settle for a slightly offended glare instead. Even if I tell him that I wasn't trying to kill him and that I actually need his help, there's nothing stopping him from just freezing the rest of my body when he decides that my words are just another attempt to escape. I try to reach for the powers that should be dancing along my fingertips, but the ice has rendered them numb for who knows how long now, and I find nothing. Cute, but that won't work. I wince as the snow spirit's eyes darken, boring into mine, while the ice around my hands somehow fills up the tiny pockets of space that my fingers had, and shoots down another option of escape. Trying to use whatever Reaper powers you have won't work. I know you need your hands for that, and I'd say my ice has a pretty good hold on them. He strides over to the scythe, and as he reaches for it, the ice encasing the weapon seems to dissolve for him. My eyes widen, expecting him to flinch away in pain like most lingering spirits do, but when he makes contact, his movements are fluid as he picks up the scythe. He inspects the weapon, tracing a finger over the intricate gold engravings that run along the start of the blade to the end, while his eyes seem to glaze over as if in a trance. The moonlight shines on his figure and his pale, long hair, and illuminates the cold that swirls around him like a comforting mist. No wonder humans who are fortunate enough to leave this forest alive have been spreading rumors of a ghost in the mountains for the past few centuries or so. If a human happens to pass by to witness this scene, they would either run away back home in terror, or they would not notice the edge of a cliff and get themselves hurt or worse. All of a sudden, I flinch. Not from any physical feeling, but something else. The feeling of wrath, an animosity that reeks through the trees and flows towards my vicinity. I'm getting a strong feeling that I am not welcomed here. As the snow spirit continues to trace the patterns, I almost don't hear his next word as a breeze brushes through the air. Beautiful. The scythe hums for him, as if he is its creator and not me, and perhaps even the scythe knows who is more fit to wield it than another. I shut my eyes to clear the stinging pain arising in the back of my head. Now is not the time for self-pity, Pelia. If I want to get out of this ice alive and complete my task, this is my chance. The snow spirit's attention is still wholly focused on the scythe, and, contrary to usual conclusions, I have to draw his attention back to me. If I can't fight my way out, I'll convince my way out. Look, I start. This is just a big misunderstanding, and I'm not here to send you to hell. Though that's where I would send you if I didn't need you for this mission. But I keep that last thought to myself and continue. And you were actually pretty easy to find. Most of the known incidents on you and death of humans were reported to have come from this area, and not any of the other areas in this world that you've been to. Which is a bit strange, and leads me to the conclusion that he only kills in these forest mountains. Even though you said you have to find new locations to stay when we find you, from the information I've found, you always end up coming back here. The snow spirit grows still, as if he himself is frozen in ice. His hair obscures my view of his face, but I can tell I'm at least getting somewhere with him. In a good way or bad, I'll have to gamble. Anyways, spirits that come back to the same place are categorized in the lingering spirits category. Just as the words leave my mouth, he's already looming over me with my scythe in one hand, while the other claws at the ground next to my head. His eyes show bright, almost exactly replicating the full moon in the sky, but his eyes glow with even more intensity than that. What do you know? I stiffen. His words have a heavy weight to them, as if all the thoughts and emotions he wants to express were crammed into those 4 words. You just get assigned a job, and then you carry out those tasks by finding us, and then with a swish of your scythe, we're sent to our prison, where we live out the rest of our eternity. I know that some spirits deserve the torturous pits of hellfire, but not all of us are stuck on this plane for unruly reasons like them. And I've never met any one of you that cared to know or ever gave me an opportunity to explain myself. No, you all just start trying to kill me and send me there like some mindless drones. So why would I help you? The look of anger, but also honesty and pain, distorting his haunting features, seals the fact that this is the last chance I'll have to convince him. But have I ever seen a Reaper listen to a spirit they've been assigned to deal with? Though not all lingering spirits can talk, some can, like him. Harvesting spirits has just always been our job when we're out in the field, so when the spirit has had a reputation of harming other beings, I just assumed that they had bad intentions and did my task to banish them. So, what if they don't have bad intentions? What if it's really just a misunderstanding or an accident? Is there even a justified reason that can cause a spirit to harm somebody? Whatever reasons you have for wanting to get out of this alive, say it fast. That's a mercy I'm willing to give you that I've never been given before. I feel, more than see, the ice as it resumes spreading up my neck to consume the rest of my body, and if I don't do something now, well, it doesn't take a genius to know what will happen to me. But perhaps it's not too late. I notice that there's something fleeting about the way he said those words, and with the slight sheen in his eyes. What is he not saying? My scythe is closer now, but even if I can feel my fingers, it's impossible to move my hands, making any physical altercation out of the question. Not that fighting has ever helped me out anyways. I don't need to fight. I just need to think my way out of this like usual. If I accomplish this task that way, I'm one step closer to never having to have anything to do with a scythe ever again. A resolution that I'm sure any Reapers who would have been assigned as my partner in the future would appreciate. So, how should I do this? If I tell him that I really am not here to kill him, and the reason I want to help him is for my own benefit, would that work? Would that kind of honesty work with a man who has never been given a chance to explain his own reasons? Our breaths mingle together as he waits with bated breath for my reply, and I take into account how the ice has stopped spreading. That's actually the reason I'm here. I want to help you, but for my own reasons. The snow spirit blinks a few times and backs away, but only a little. What? Killing you would actually be undermining my plans. His nose scrunches up, distorting his elegant features, and for some foreign reason, causes my heart to skip a beat. You say that like I would care about what some spirit reaper is planning, he spits out. Fine. If being honest and opening my heart up to him won't work on him this time, then I'll need to gain his interest another way. Do you know why no matter how far you go, you always end up having to come back here? Like, maybe you feel a tug, an urge to come back? As if reeling back from my sudden change in topic, his expression shifts from confusion to guarded once again. Yes, I died here, and some part of myself is still attached to this area for some reason I can't even remember. Aha! In most cases, yes, that's true. But there's something about you that is not quite like your average lingering spirit, or even your average tainted spirit. He squints down at me, and I can't help but widen my eyes a bit as his closeness causes my breath to fog up my own glasses. Tell me. I would, but I gesture with my eyes at the ice that's still encasing all the parts of my body except my face. I bite down on the freezing pain and school my features to remain unbothered. You're going to have to trust me and let me out first. The snow spirit scans my face and then my hands as if I'm in any position to fight back or have a trick up my sleeve. The fog dissipates from my glasses, revealing his cool and stony expression. Somehow his eyes are hollow, but at the same time are as solid as steel. Sure. He gets up and moves away just enough to give me space, but not too far in case I'm dumb enough to try something. But I get to keep your scythe for now, and if you try to take it back, I'll know. Go ahead. I have weapons that are far more capable than a physical tool anyways. With that, he gives me an examining glare, and I can see his shoulders slightly tensing up. Perhaps that was a wrong choice of words. I meant my mind. My knowledge? The snow spirit's posture relaxes, if only a little, and he scoffs. For someone who prefers using their head in a fight rather than their weapon, you sure know how to instigate a brawl. In an instant, I feel the ice loosen, and I shake the now fragmented pieces from my freezing limbs. I heave out a sigh, a familiar rush of pride from getting out of another predicament without having to fight my way out swells within me. Just then, the sound of crackling snaps me out of my reverie. I look down to find ice climbing up from the soles of my boots and continuing up the laces. Speak, Reaper. I lift my feet, shaking them off, and find the ice to be less resistant than I imagined. I take the gesture as a warning that if I'm to try anything but what I intended to do, that he will be quick to act. Even though I get his sentiment, I still frown at him while I brush off the rest of the particles from my cloak and hair. Moments like these make me grateful for the fact that I wasn't born in a fragile human body where I probably would have lost all my limbs from the cold by now. I will, I grit out. But are you really not going to ask what my reasons for helping you are? Maybe this will help solidify the fact that my intentions are anything but death-dealing. He gives me a long look until he eventually speaks. Fine. What is it? Though I don't appreciate the gruff way he asks, which sounds more like a demand than an actual curiosity to know, I sigh and answer anyways. I want a promotion, you can call it. And solving your problem in a way that doesn't involve killing you is the way for me to get it. Even though the promotion is not guaranteed, that information is of no use to him. A promotion, he mumbles to himself while contemplating what I said. I startle when he barks out a laugh of all things. So even greed and the desire for wealth extends to long-life beings such as yourself? The conclusion he comes to surprises me, and I can't help but ask, what does being a long-life being have anything to do with not having the desire to be in an abundance of wealth? He tilts his head and raises a brow. What are you trying to say? His interest in understanding what I said sparks something inside me, and I can't help but stand a little straighter. Well, greed and jealousy still exists, even in the minds of the wealthy. Just because one has lived longer doesn't mean they've learned higher quality and more valuable lessons than one who has not. Just like how a fish born in a pond might explore and learn everything it has to know about that pond and believe itself to be the smartest being in there. But what about the world outside the pond? The fish might never come to understand how there are also lakes and oceans and what exists and happens in those. He's still staring at me, but the way he leans back a bit tells me that he's somewhat satisfied with my explanation. Either that, or he didn't understand any of it. So, to some, yes, maybe wealth in monetary terms is their motivation in their existence, but it's not that simple for me. My eyes find my scythe, which still remains in the snow spirit's grip. It is indeed a beautiful weapon, like he said, but it's not something that should be entrusted to me. He opens his mouth as if to say something, but closes it after a pause. What do they call you, Reaper? And just like that, he's back to that demanding tone. I'm assuming that's his way of asking me for my name. I debate whether I should even answer, but decide that there's no point in delaying the inevitable. Pelia, I'm Pelia. The snow spirit's expression doesn't change, and I question if he even heard me in the first place. And what do they call you? I ask. He doesn't answer and instead steps towards me, stopping just close enough that I can feel a brush of the cool air radiating off him. I've been called many names over the centuries. Ghost, devil, monster, even something as absurd as the wrath of cursed mountain. Wow, how edgy. He glowers at me. You asked. Oops. Oh, did I say that out loud? I give him a cheeky smile, and he just huffs out a sigh, but I swear I saw one corner of his lips twitch. Maven, he answers. That's what you can call me. Okay then, Maven. A new calm has settled over him, and I can't detect any hint of malice or hostility from his actions. In one smooth and slow movement, Maven holds the scythe horizontally in the space between us and outstretches it towards me. At the same moment, a chill runs through my body, but I know that it's not from the cold. There's that feeling again, like something's watching us, and not just watching, but ebbing with antipathy. Though I can't pinpoint a location because of the distracting presence of the snow spirit in front of me. What are you doing? I'm returning your scythe. Why? I said I don't need it, and I meant it. His gaze is unwavering, and he makes no move to retract his hand. I'm tired of holding it, so just take it. The slight edge in the way he delivers his reasoning tells me that it's perhaps not his only reason, but I leave it at that for now. I look from him to the scythe and take in a breath as I reach for the weapon, wrapping my fingers around the chilling snath. As he takes his hand back, the thin layer of ice where his hand was disappears in the blink of an eye. Ah, so that's how he holds the scythe without getting hurt. There. I ask what your reasons are. Now tell me about... Before he can finish his sentence, Maven's focus shifts to the forest's edge. I follow his gaze and don't spot what got his attention, but I can sense something. Something approaching. Fast. Despite myself, my grip on the scythe tightens, and I shift my feet to stand in a wider stance. Is this the same presence that I've sensed those few times? Something about it is definitely similar. That emanating malice that feels almost as if it's a force compelling me to leave these mountains. No, not to leave, but to die. Apprehension rises throughout my body, and I flex my fingers. The minute sparks of power do little to relieve the tension in me. With my eyes glued to the tree line, I pry my heels out of the ground to stand in front of Maven. At the same time, his arm shoots out to block my path. Don't. She's harmless. No, I don't think... I start to retort, but when I find that Maven's gaze is still fixated on something beyond the shadows instead of me, I stop. Is he talking to me? Or... I turn my attention back to the trees. Then I hear it. The cracking branches, the rumbling of cobble, the scattering snow, and the heavy huff of a breath. Birds shoot out from the treetops, their cries alerting nearby creatures to the sudden danger amidst the night, and I can't help but feel the urge to avoid this conflict also. But I can't leave Maven. I'm here to do my job, and combat is just a part of it. Maven takes in a deep breath as frost swirls around his hands, and he steps fully in front of me. Don't do this, Wolfie, Maven instructs. Wolfie? At that moment, wood and debris disrupt the forest's edge, and an enormous creature breaks through and into the clearing. With its fangs bared and ears tucked back, the creature sprints towards us with no plans on stopping its trajectory. As it passes by a single tree in the field, the tips of its dark gray fur grazes the lowest branch, keeping in mind that the lowest branch seems to be at least several heads taller than me. It is indeed a wolf, but compared to the few I've encountered in my lifetime, this one's stature is taller. A lot taller. And its narrowed yellow eyes are piercing straight at me. If you fell asleep, wake up, please. Or just keep sleeping, sorry. But welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my story and my amazing voice acting. I really do enjoy voicing them and reading it. It's so fun. I think my favorite line from that, or the way I read it, was when Maven said, don't do this, Wolfie. It came out better than I thought. I actually have a pretty high speaking voice, but like when I'm recording, when I'm by myself, I feel like my energy is lower, and that's why I talk a little lower. But if I'm around people, my voice gets pretty high. But I've been working on that. I think it's just nerves sometimes. And I do want to get someone to voice Maven eventually, but it will probably be once I finish the whole story, because I'm still working on it, so details change, and I don't want to have a voice actor keep rereading it for every new draw with me, or whenever I update the story. So if you have a voice actor in mind that you like, feel free to recommend them to me, because I want to know. Whenever I finish a visual novel game, I'll probably get voice actors for that too, because that would be cool again. I don't mind voicing the characters myself at all, because I actually really like it, it's fun. But I think it would be so cool to have like an actual male voice, because I mean my voice can only go so deep. So I think it would sound really different with an actual male voice. But I'll be honest, I do like voicing my characters, so... But I will take a listen. I would like to work on projects and other stuff with other creators eventually, or just like play games with my friend. I will probably have my friend here at some point. Either just chatting or art or playing games. We'll see. But I will probably have them on here eventually. Plans I have for this story is I want to make the story with some illustrations for it, for some of the scenes, once I finish the whole story, once I finish writing the whole story. I think that would really add to it. It would look really cool. But yeah, I also have other ideas for it, but I'm not going to say at the moment. So you're just gonna have to wait. If you're listening to this, then that means you made it through the whole video, with skipping or not. It doesn't matter. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and especially thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of this video. And if you listened to my story, I hope you enjoyed and look forward to the next part. If you liked the video, please don't forget to hit the like button and also hit subscribe so you can stick around and see the next Draw With Me while I talk. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and bye-bye.